All right, guys, my phone died for some reason when I was talking about the block, so I have to redo the last part of the video. Here's the block with the notch. It goes in like that. That was the hardest time I've ever had with that block. But anyway, so it goes in there and indexes this ring. Then the next step is the circlip, which is not too hard to put in. You can do that more or less by hand. You want to make sure that it really sits down into the groove there. So the next item is kind of the last mechanical item in here is this, which is called the reverse planetary ring gear. With this one, you're going to be indexing these teeth with these planetary gear teeth, which makes it slightly hard to get in. One thing that's kind of interesting that I figured out is that these notches are what is responsible for the park function. When your transmission is in park, there's a little pawl or arm that engages with those. So check those for wear. I didn't see any real wear on mine. There you go, that goes in. And the next item is you want to use one of these gaskets. These are a little bit finicky to put on. The ones I'm using are a little bit ripped, which makes them easier, but yours won't be ripped. Then this plate, which is called the separation plate, goes on like that. That is held in place with one single screw that is driven in with a flathead. And then there's one more gasket, one more identical gasket. And then you're ready to assemble this. There is one final procedure that you have to go through, and the instructions are in the Bentley, and that is determining the end play. So when you assemble all this stuff like we've just done, the total assembled length of all these components can vary depending on the condition of the friction plates. And so this height can change, and there's a procedure for figuring out the amount of end play you're going to have, and then using a shim to control that or to fine tune that. But anyway, that's the end of the assembly of the main concentric clutch parts of the tranny. And the last thing to do really is to put in the valve body. This is the valve body. Now on mine, I disassembled it and cleaned everything and put it back together, which, judging from how filthy it was inside, I would say was a really good idea with mine. And if you're going to all this work, you might as well do it. It might be intimidating because of the number of pieces in there, but just be really organized with your springs and valves. I just took them out, laid them in a way that made sense to me, so I understood how to put them back together, cleaned them, and then just put it back together. Oops. Now, when you're reinstalling the valve body, there's this little guy, which is free to fall out. It's not the end of the world if it does, but it's easier if it doesn't. And this little arm engages with a hole here in this tang, which is on your valve, or on your gear selector plate or mechanism. That just goes in there like that. And the only other thing you want to watch out for is this little arm needs to be sitting nicely in this rectangular cutout. And then you've got 11 of these, which I'm just going to spin in quickly with the drill. Or not. Oh, I was in reverse. They tell you to go in a diagonal pattern, sort of like you would do on lug nuts. There's a torque value for these, which I observed and was careful about in my other transmission. So don't just spin them in like I did. There's a filter that goes here. The hole is not in the center, so you have to find the right orientation with that. Then there's this cover plate that goes on there, which is secured with two little Phillips heads. The filter can be cleaned. It's just a wire mesh. The gasket, of course, is replaceable. The gasket that was under there. And there you go. That's the valve body reinstalled. You know, this is all correct. And the last thing you would do really would be to put this on. And again, you would be more careful than I'm being. Because I'm just dealing with these dirty parts that I'm not going to reuse anytime soon. So we'll spin these in, and that will be the end of it. The only other thing that I would say is that there are apparently two different kinds of friction discs. Oops. And what I mean by that is some of the ones in my kit had this kind of textured face where you have grooves and ridges, and some of them had a really plain face, almost just like paper. And the manual says to make sure to use this kind, the ones that are ridged, which just feels like it makes more sense to me. Luckily, I had some of these that came with the second transmission that I got, and I used these. The rebuild kit that I got from Rock Auto was mostly these, and I didn't end up using I didn't really use any of these. So I would say do some research when you order your rebuild kit and try to find a kit that has this style of disc. Okay, that's pretty much it. This is ready to, well, if this were a proper build, this would be ready to bolt up. Lining up the splines can be a little bit difficult. What I did is I turned my differential section on its end so that the splines were pointing directly straight up. And then I held this over it and I kind of jiggled it until the splines all lined up. And once they did, it just dropped very satisfyingly. So that's it. Enjoy.